And but salt has no healing presence in it. That bowl that he went and got had no healing presence. He was just showing him, okay, I want you to show you, this is the bowl you've been using. And because I'm going to heal this water, this is the bowl that you will now use. I'm going to take this cup from you and you're going to begin to use this one. I'm going to take what's been dragging you down for all this time. I'm going to take what's been holding you back. I'm going to take it and put it away and take it out of your life, and I'm going to give you this new. I'm going to take the presence that you've been carrying for so long that's got you to this point but hasn't taken you to the level that you need to be at, but you're comfortable in that presence that you're in right now, and I've been in that place too. You get into the presence and God really begins to bless you and you get comfortable in this one spot, man, and God's using you and using you and using you. And you're like, man, this is awesome, this is perfect, this is right where I want to be, knowing it's not really where you need to be or where you should be. And before too long, then God's saying, okay, I'm going to take that away from you. You've had that long enough. You've been on that bottle long enough. I'm going to begin to give you this one. And it can be uncomfortable at times. I know how people are. My mom, she cooks. If she don't have a certain pot to cook something in, she freaks. Of course, my mom doesn't cook anymore now because she lives by herself. So, kind of by herself. And, but it's like, okay, so I'm going to take that presence that you have, and I'm going to set over here. When we were still at Tabernacle, and Corey was kind of running the youth there, and we were kind of doing it as a team. Corey was, we didn't call him the youth pastor, but that's pretty much what he was. We called him Gayfer. If y'all want to know, it's funny. We found it. It's a funny word. So that's why we call it. But he was the youth pastor. While he was youth pastor, I would help and I would do things for him, and I would say, and I was like, man, if you want this done, I'll do it. This and that. And at that time, I was the drama leader of the drama team, kind of. My wife did worship and also did that with me. And I was perfect. I was comfortable right there, man. I could do that all day. It was easy to me. It was simple. I could just sit back and relax and watch all these people. We did practice. If y'all ever seen us practice, you would just shake your head. And it's comical. We've recorded a few, and I was comfortable right there. And then we start going, and then we begin to feel that push. God's saying, I've called you to something else. I've called you to something else. I've called you to something better. I've called you to a higher level. And it was okay. It was perfect. All right, we was all in. Bam! Let's do it. Until we got there, and they were like, oh, man. We didn't do youth at first, and I'm like, oh, this ain't too bad now. I just sit back and just be a member of the church and do this, and I'll do the sound, and I'll do the words on the screen, and I'll make sure the messages get recorded, and I'll cook the food, and then we started doing youth, and Corey goes, you're going to be a youth pastor. And I'm like, huh. Cool. I'm like inside, I'm freaking out. I'm like, I don't want to. But it's been an amazing experience, but it's also been uncomfortable because God said, okay, you've been in this presence, you've been in this spot for long enough. I'm going to take that from you. I'm going to give you something better. I'm going to give you something more. It's not always going to be fun. It's not always going to be easy, but it's going to help you grow. And it's going to help you grow these kids that are about to come into this church. And it's going to help you grow the other members of the church as you stretch some of them, as you use them in the youth group as leaders and all this other stuff. It had to be uncomfortable at times for Elisha to just sit back saying, man, dude, you ever coming down here and taking this fool? Because I'm ready anytime.
Yep.
I mean, come on. I've been following this dude. He keeps telling me to stay behind, and I keep telling him what you told me to tell him, and I'm about to get tired of it. He's going to turn around one of these times when I tell him I ain't leaving, he's going to punch me in the face. And he goes, anytime you want to take it. I mean, I didn't know if you took a day off that day, if you had a sick day. Just wondered when they would come. I mean, I can call somebody if I need to set it up, and it had to be frustrating at times, had to be irritating, but he didn't care. He said, "I'm going to continue my journey. I know where God's placed me, and I know what God's called me to do, and this is where I'm going to stay." He said, "I'm never going to give up. I don't care how long I have to follow him. It might get frustrating at times. If I have to follow him until I'm 150, that's what I'll do." Because he knew that he was going to receive that double portion. He knew where that was going to take him. He knew that was going to be the prize that he was going to get at the end of the race. And he goes, "It doesn't matter. But it gets frustrating at times. I understand that. It gets frustrating. It gets hard." But he never gave up. He continued to push on. He continued to pursue what God had told him was going to happen. So many times we'll pursue it to a point, and then it just gets too much. It gets too hard. It gets to be a struggle. It gets to be too inconvenient to continue to pursue something that's not coming to pass. It gets too difficult to say, "You know what, I'm going to go after this," or "I'm going to go after this," but it's really not happening anytime soon. If I would have known that we were going to have a baby until like 5.5 years married, we wouldn't even worry about trying until then. I mean, we would have tried. Don't get me wrong. Let me reword that. We would have tried. But we wouldn't have been so frustrated and so upset if the Lord would just come down all night and would like, "I am going to wait until the 5.5 year to give you birth." I've been like, "Okay." Then we know at least, and hey, that's cool. That means I can try as much as I want. And it was a struggle. It was hard at times. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but we enjoyed every minute of it. We got frustrated at each other at times. We got frustrated at other people at times. We had some battles with other people about it, and some struggles with other people, because when you're trying to get pregnant, everybody around you is pregnant, and then gets pregnant. So, and it was a struggle, and it was a tough thing, and it actually put a kind of a wedge in between me and my wife and the pastor Corey and his family for a while, because his daughter's, if y'all didn't know, she's pregnant like 18,000. She got pregnant like 2 weeks after they got married, and we did their wedding ceremony November 1st. Me and my wife officiated their wedding, and then like 2 weeks later, she's pregnant. And like it had been close for a few times, close friends of ours, but not like that close. Like that's the only people we hung out with at the time was their family, and then bam, and it was hard. It was a struggle. I was frustrated, and me and Corey got into it, and it was really taxing on us for a while. But we understood the call that God had given us. And the devil was trying to put a wedge in that any way he could. Yeah. And we understood that after the frustration for the first week or so. And we understood that, and we said, "You know what? We're not going to let this defeat us. Amen. Yeah. We're not going to let this take us. We're not going to let this destroy this church. We're not going to let this destroy what God has placed together. We're not going to let this tear apart just this area and all these friends and family. We're going to stand up to the devil. We're going to stand up and say, 'You know what? It doesn't matter what goes on, because we believe that what God has promised us, and we know that it's going to happen. It doesn't matter when it's going to happen.'" And we end up working all of our problems out, working all of our stuff out. Sure enough, not long after, she's pregnant. And it was so crazy because Corey's wife, Amy, and my wife had kind of been butting heads about the whole thing. And she had wrote her an apology letter and given it to her, and she had contacted her and told her She said, you know what? She goes, we're going to do a fast. She goes, we're going to fast every Friday. And she said, we're going to fast together, and that's what we're going to believe for. She said, I'm going to believe with you for you to get pregnant. And so they were going to do it until the 21st of April, right?
Well, do it however long it took.
However long it took. But they start on the 1st of April, something like that. Second. So it was going to be like 20. And then as Amy's reading the Bible and praying while she's on this fast on Fridays and stuff, it was so crazy because she began to come to all these things. It said 24. And the number 24, and it said when Daniel did his 21-day fast, so he fasted for 21 days, and then his blessing came on the 24th day. So she was thinking, so she told Faith and started showing her all the stuff. She was, you won't believe this. Flip it 2 pages. She goes, you gotta see this. You gotta see this. And then like they're showing me, and I'm like, oh, it's cool. You know, I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know, like whatever. I was talking to Corey about sports, and I'm mad because he was interrupting me talking. But, no, I really did enjoy it. I mean, and so they're showing me the stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, you know, blah, blah. So she could really believe in the 24th day. Well, it happened to be the 24th day. I was going to be in El Salvador, and that wasn't going to work out. She wasn't going to be able to not, if it was true, she wasn't going to be able to not tell anybody for that long period of time. So, like a few days before I left, I don't even remember where I was at. I was probably watching a NASCAR race at the church. Oh, no, I'd actually gone to another church service. I was lowballing myself there. I was at another church service in Camp Point, Illinois with Pastor Kevin Coates and Corey. And we'd gone up there, and she took a test, and guess where I was gone, which I was like, why didn't you just wait till like right before I got home? It would have been a whole lot easier. She took a test like in the middle of the afternoon. Well, I'm gone. And I'm like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. And she has no clue. She gets this test, and it's like, there's a little line, but she can't tell if there's a line. And she's like, I don't know. So she sends this picture to Amy. She goes, what do you think? She goes, I think you are, and blah, blah. So she's like freaking out. So she goes to Walmart. She buys another one that just plain says pregnant or not pregnant. And so then she goes home, and then she does her business on that one. Says pregnant. Is that weird because it does her business?
Oh, you're good, man. Sorry.
I didn't know how to word that. And it says pregnant, so then she's like texting a picture to Amy, and she's like, oh my God. And then they're talking back and forth, but she can't tell anybody else, and Amy can't tell anybody because I don't know yet. So then like she's like figuring out all this stuff, and then like I come home, and she keeps texting me, she's like, where you at? And I'm used to that.
That's what you get for complaining.
And but we were there, and I was coming home, and I think she did message me one time, and she asked where I was at, and I told her. And so we got back to Hannibal. I got home, and just like any other man, I walk inside, and she goes, we need to talk. And I was like, I like walked in the bedroom. I'm like, well, let me change my clothes. I'm like in there forever. I'm like, man, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do? And I'm trying to think, and I can't think of anything. And I walk back in there, and I'm standing there at the doorway. And I'm like, I'm gonna stand right here because if I need to walk away, I can still walk away. So I stand there and I said, so what do you want to talk about? She goes, if you're still doing stuff, she goes, when you get ready, she just sit down and we'll talk. And I'm like, oh, I gotta sit down. And it's just, I gotta go to the bathroom. I like walking to the bathroom. I'm just sitting there, just like, I'm still thinking, I have no idea what's going on. And I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, I don't think I did anything. And I'm like, I just can bite the bullet. I'm just gonna go out there and find out what I did, I guess. And so I went out there and sat down. And she's like, can you sit down? I'm like, I'm in so much trouble. I said, what? She's like, close your eyes. And I'm like, oh, this is getting weird. She's getting ready to slap me in the face and not let me see it coming. And so I sat down, and she made me put my hand out. She put the pregnancy test in my hand, and then had a sign that said, you're going to be a daddy in December of 15. And I started crying. She was recording, so I looked like a fool. And it was so crazy because then after we started talking and we were talking with Amy and stuff like that, their fast, when they started their fast, it actually ended up being almost 20, exactly, it probably would have been because she was going to wait if I wouldn't have been in El Salvador, but it would have been exactly 24 days after the time they started the fast that she would have found out. And it's so crazy. And I was telling somebody last night at the fish fry we were at, and I said, it's just amazing what God can do. And they're just kind of looking at me like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. I don't even know. What, God, what? I'm like, and I'm just telling them, I'm like, oh yeah, you got to hear this story. I got to tell you. And the girl I was talking to, she was really interested. She's a Christian, and then her husband just kind of, So he was just kind of looking at me like, he might have been drunk too, so that might have been more of it. I know she wasn't, and she was just like, oh, that's awesome. And she's like, I'm getting goosebumps. And like, he's over looking at her like, what are you talking about? It's weird. And, but it was so crazy to realize just what God can do, because we refuse to give up, and we refuse to let God, refuse to let the devil dictate what we were going to do in our life. Just like Elijah and Elisha. Elisha refused to let Elijah or any other person, when those people came to him when he went to the cities and said, do you realize what's going to happen to Elijah? Are you sure you want to be there? He could have said, you know what, you're probably right. I probably don't want to be there. I don't want to witness that and this and that. And I don't, it could be scary. I don't know. I've never seen a horse chariot of fire come out of heaven, so it might be scary. And he could easily said, you know what, yeah, you're right. I'll just stay right here with you guys. I'll hang out. And then when I hear that it's happened, I don't know how I'm going to hear it's going to happen, because he's going to be by himself, so it'll happen sometime. He could easily say, you know what, I'm just going to, that's it. I'm just going to let it go like that. But he didn't, because he knew that double portion was right around the corner. He knew that was going to happen. He knew that blessing was coming. He knew that. So this morning, I want to challenge you not only to look to God to receive a double portion of just the presence that you carry now, the presence that this church has, just that it increase more and more each day, that it goes far beyond any imagination of what y'all think this place can become. It's so weird because our church is tiny. It's like this big. It's this room right here. And we can fit, like 70 people in there, in our sanctuary. And then we're going to start tearing walls out. But it was funny because somebody said, they were talking to us and they didn't know about our church, me and Corey or something. They were talking about something. They said, oh man, you must go to a big church. And I'm like, yeah, sure do. We reach nations, brother. And they're like, no, I said, not really. I said, we probably got like 30 people. And like, kind of looked at us like, what? Y'all are weird. And I'm like, we are weird. But we refuse to let somebody else dictate. Well, because there's people that'll say, you know what, your church is too small. They can't. You all can't do anything. Your church isn't big enough to worry about. Your church is just, even this church. Oh, your all's church isn't big enough to. Your church is too far out in the sticks, and nobody will find it.
Right.
And there's floods everywhere, so you got to drive 5,000 miles to get to it. Nobody's going to come there.
Yeah.
And presence of God doesn't go that far out in the country. So I'll stick to my big inner city church that has 30,000 people and nobody ever talks to me.
Yeah.
And so many times that's people get caught up in just the hoopla and the things that are going on, but they don't just. It's not about that. It's about the presence of God.
That's right.
Yeah.
We had a lady tell my wife one day, and I won't disclose her name. A lady, not my wife, told Amy, Corey's wife, Amy, and told her one day that we were talking about churches and stuff, and she was thinking about leaving her church. It's so funny because I hear people talk about leaving their church all the time. I'm like, well, where are you going? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, and God's never going to move you from somewhere if He has not called you to somewhere else.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
I mean, if I'm just going to quit going to Consume International Ministries, somebody goes, why? I was like, I just feel like it. No, you're making that choice yourself. Because God will always call you to something else before He calls you out of something else. Yeah. And it was so funny because she was talking about leaving the church she was going to. And she goes, well, where are you going to go? She goes, I don't know. I've thought about a couple of them, and I can't go here because I've already been here, and that didn't go very well, even though it was a long time ago, and this and that, and blah, blah. And Amy just real quietly, because she didn't say anything about our church, and Amy just real quietly, she goes, you can come up to, she says, you can come up to our church. And she goes, no offense, but your all's churches are big enough for me. And I was like, Amy told me, I'm like, and you didn't hit her? And she goes, man, she goes, I almost went ghetto on her. She goes, I didn't know what to do. She goes, I'm from Memphis. She's from Memphis, and you don't mess with her. She's like 4 foot nothing. And she is a wild, she don't get on her bad side. And I just like, she told me that story, and I mean, I was in tears laughing. And I was like, and I said, that's the problem with the world. Is because that church is too small. You know what? I'd rather have 50 churches of 20 than I would have one church of 20,000.
That's right. That's right.
Our goal is to not have one location of Consumer International Ministries in New London, Missouri. Our goal is to disciple people and move them into places that they need to go and places they feel called to, along with El Salvador and stuff like that. And people can say whatever they want about your all's church, about our church. We have like 30 members, and we've spent like, I don't even know how many, 5,000 or more Bibles over there in the last year and a half. I've been to El Salvador five or six times in the last 3 years. We've taken groups of 27, 28, and 21, along with groups of like 4 and 5, something like that. And raised all the money through the church with your all's help, with other churches' help, with other just people that, man, it's so enjoying just to see those people. And I challenge you this morning as you go on to receive that double portion and be like Cortez in 1519. You don't have to dress like him, because I'm sure they dressed weird back then. They probably wore pink.
Right.
And hey, I'm wearing salmon. And it's kind of pinkish too. And Gabe, you didn't get the memo.
No.
So I challenge you to be like Cortez. Don't give up. Don't look back. You've gotten to the destination. You've gotten this far. Burn the ships. Burn the ships. Because like I said, you've come to this point. And so many times we get to this point, and it's one of those things, you take one step forward, 2 steps back. If you take one step forward and you turn around and you cut all ties, you burn that ship right there. There's nowhere to take a step back.
That's right.
So I challenge you, if everybody's staying, I'm going to pray. I'm going to